it's like you have a picture, but it has a lot of missing pieces. You have a jigsaw, but a lot of pieces are missing. So silence is those pieces. Silence completes the context. It brings forth those horrors in the society or the cultural fabric or the political fabric that generally we do not talk about. Silence is like the subconscious in the human mind.
First, if you can talk about paper planes and this idea of silence and how you look at silence basically.
Paper planes actually started in 2019, somewhere in 2019, and it got aggravated with the fact when I was kind of forced into not having any connection with the family, no house of where the family or how the family is. So it was a general situation back at that time because there were curfews and cuts.
And you were in Australia?
I was in Australia at that time. I had no way of contacting my family for 3 months. It went out for 3 months. I guess 90 days is the number stuck in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And during that phase, there was a sense of helplessness, irritability, like why? If something had to be done, you did it, why would you cut the communication off? And also, what added to it was like there were people who were ill back home and you had no way of knowing how they are. Did something significant happen? So this all led to this very basic kind of a feeling, this helplessness about we can't even deal with this simple situation, which seems non-existent in many parts of the world. I had previously worked with a group of students in Australia, and that time also the curfews were a bit frequent here. So one day, due to the projects they were proposing for kind of approval, I decided to indulge with the students in a different manner. I asked them that, okay, you're saying all of these, but they are fine. How if we look at the fact that I'm your supervisor and you are not able to connect to me tomorrow? And they were like, what do you mean? That's impossible. We have internet, we have phone, so how can we not connect with you? And I told them that, see, we get communication cutoffs very commonly here. If they were not, they couldn't believe it. And they were like, that's impossible. It's like, no, that's very much possible. What you can do is you can open up the Google and you can search this. And they did. And they came back to me and they said, yes, it happens. So we had no idea it happened. I said, it happens very much in the real time. So my question to you is, how would you tackle a situation like this as artists? So what would be your mode? How would you investigate it? And what would your questions be? So they made a whole project out of it. And the project was also on the similar lines. They didn't make paper planes, but what they did was like they took all the aspects into consideration and they found the impossibility of sending me anything. And so they prepared a courier pack and they labeled it and they left it on the gallery floor to be posted, which it couldn't be posted. And that was a very beautiful work from those students. Like it was a work that was invigorating on many levels. Not just fulfilling the assignment, it was actually transcending the assignment by far by taking into account the global scenarios or the nuances in the global functioning of the communities and trying to apply it on themselves and giving a critical analysis of it. So similarly, when this project started manifesting, those were the questions with me, and I started reverting back to the basic question of the desire of having the freedom to at least connect with people, and that was somehow being taken away. So I went to the paper planes, and the paper planes, because of their innocent image.
Did you make any paper planes when you were a kid?
Yes, we did.
You grew up in Baramulla, right?
I did grow up in Baramulla. I did make paper planes, although they were very frustrating for me at points because sometimes I wanted to make those really intricate ones and I couldn't.
Yeah?
Yeah. For me, it was mostly like paper planes because Baramulla, what's noticeable in Baramulla even now is that after 3 or 4, you'll see this moment of air, this breeze flowing, or sometimes the wind is quite strong also. but it's throughout there, or mostly in the between the spring and the autumn season. So every day, even if it's 28 degrees in the evening, you will have a respite, you will have a bit of rain, some wind. Water bodies were a bit far. You have Baramulla, as geographically, if you know it, it's divided into two by the Jhelum. So there are not many access points to the river as such, and the residential areas are a bit towards the insides and trails of the city. Saying that, I would make these planes, and they would just be fascinating to watch fly. And when I later came back to it in my research, when this idea of constructing paper planes struck me, I started definitely looking into the meaning and the symbolism of or the metaphor of this paper plane. Why do we kind of do it, even as children? And the only reason I found was that the desire to experience freedom or to attain something that appears unattainable. Because for a child to do that is a pinnacle of creativity, and for any individual to desire a sense of freedom or doing something that they feel they have been barred to do marks nature that is critical. So, but that being said, on the conceptual front, the image of the paper plane is always silent. It does not have any. It's not loud per se. If I have to rephrase the last phase, it's not loud. It's just a subtle representation of an airplane that a child makes. And that's what made it interesting for me, having such a simple image and carrying such a weighted connotation. It allowed, it kind of pushed me more into looking into it, to the point where the project started growing and metamorphosizing into different executionary or different executions in such, different completions in such. Like I started with the idea to have these made by the people and then collecting it and then displaying it in the vitrines, like in the museum setting. But then it went on where I wanted to have it as a correspondence, so that this would serve as a feature, as a letter. And then finally, I wanted to merge both of the initial and the later one. And in between also, I wanted to do these digital drawings of it, kind of having this kind of a labeled, classified aspect of paper plane. Like I call this work as Anatomy of Paper Planes, to give that a sense of a more dissected and investigated form. Because silence is not taking out everything. Silence is just taking out the loud parts, bringing the noise down to the point where it feels like a whisper rather than a shout. So I think that's how I work with the silence in my work and in my understanding of the issues or questions that I work on. Silence has been that kind of a part for me since my early childhood, and it had continued through. But yeah, sometimes when you are experimenting in some works, you do not. Earlier works, I was not being conscious of the silence, but it was only after a certain time when I wanted my work to grow. In the sense, I wanted it to be more mature. I wanted it to be more interactive. I wanted it to have a sense of inclusiveness in terms of the reader, that the reader is a part of it also. It's only then, when I started analyzing my work and its elements, that I found that the most important element that is missing in that context would be silence. So that's my relationship in terms of my practice with silence, and has been for quite some time now. And it's best to have that silence if you are telling stories that have never been told.
Yeah.
If you are thinking of bringing up sentiments, or if you are trying to reconnect the reader with the sensation or the experience, I think silence would be the best part to do it. Silence is kind of that sensitizer in it,
Yes.
in all of it. That's my understanding.